Guide to Original Issue Discount. OID. Instruments. Department of the Treasury Internal Revenue Service. PUBLICATION 1212 REV. January 2023. CAT. NO. 6127 3T. Contents. Introduction. 2. Definitions. 2. Debt instruments in the OID. Tables. 3. Debt instruments not in the OID. Tables. 3. Information for brokers and other middlemen. 4 short-term obligations, redeemed at maturity. 4 long-term debt instruments. 4 certificates of deposit. 5 bearer bonds and coupons. 5 backup withholding. 5. Information for owners of OID debt instruments. 5 Form 1099 OID. 6 How to report OID. 7 Figuring OID on long-term debt instruments. 7 Debt instruments issued after July 1, 1982, and before 1985. 8 Debt instruments issued after 1984. 9 Contingent payment debt instruments. 10 Inflation indexed debt instruments. 11 Figuring OID on stripped bonds and coupons. 12 Form 1099 OID. 12 Tax-exempt bonds and coupons. 12 Debt instruments and coupons purchased after July 1, 1982, and before 1985. 13 Debt instruments and coupons purchased after 1984. 13. How to get tax help. 14. Index. 18. Section references are to the Internal Revenue Code unless otherwise noted. Future developments. For the latest information about developments related to Pub 1212, such as legislation enacted after it was published, go to irs.gov/pub1212. Department of the Treasury, Internal Revenue Service, Publication 1212 Rev. January 2023, CAT. Number 61273T. Guide to Original Issue Discount OID Instruments. Get forms and other information faster and easier at irs.gov, English irs.gov/Spanish, Espanol irs.gov/Chinese, Zhonghuian. irs.gov/Korean, Hangyugyo, irs.gov/Russian, Puskij, irs.gov/Vietnamese, Tieng Viet. March 31, 2023. Photographs of missing children. The IRS is a proud partner with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children (NCMEC). Photographs of missing children selected by the center may appear in this publication on pages that would otherwise be blank. You can help bring these children home by looking at the photographs and calling 1-800-THE-LOST 1-800-843-5678 if you recognize a child. Introduction. This publication has 2 purposes. Its primary purpose is to help brokers and other middlemen identify publicly offered original issue discount (OID) debt instruments they may hold as nominees for the true owners, so they can file Forms 1099 OID or Forms 1099 INT, as required. The other purpose of the publication is to help owners of publicly offered OID debt instruments determine how much OID to report on their income tax returns. Original Issue Discount OID Tables. The tables of publicly offered OID debt instruments (OID tables) are available at irs.gov/pub1212 by clicking the link under Recent Developments. Details about the deadlines to furnish and file information returns that rely on these tables and how to obtain an extension to these deadlines can be found in the 2022 General Instructions for Certain Information Returns, available at irs.gov. The information in the OID tables comes from the issuers of the debt instruments and from financial publications and is updated annually. However, see debt instruments not in the OID tables later. Brokers and other middlemen can rely on the OID tables to determine for information reporting purposes whether a debt instrument was issued at a discount and the OID to be reported on information returns. However, because the information in the OID tables has generally not been verified by the IRS as correct, the following tax matters are subject to change upon examination by the IRS. The OID reported by owners of a debt instrument on their income tax returns. The issuer's classification of an instrument as debt for federal income tax purposes. The adjusted basis of a debt instrument. Instructions for issuers of OID debt instruments. In general, issuers of publicly offered OID debt instruments must file Form 8281 within 30 days after the date of issuance, and, if registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), within 30 days after registration with the SEC. A separate Form 8281 must be filed for each issuance or SEC registration. For more information, see Form 8281 and its instructions. Issuers should report errors in and omissions from the list in writing at the following address: IRS OID Publication Project SE, W, CAR, MP, TFP 1111 Constitution Avenue, NW, IR 6526 Washington, D.C. 20224. REMIC and CDO Information Reporting Requirements. Brokers and other middlemen must follow special information reporting requirements for real estate mortgage investment conduit, REMIC regular interests, and collateralized debt obligation, CDO interests. The rules are explained in Pub. 938. Holders of interests in REMICs and CDOs should see Chapter 1 of Pub. 550 for information on REMICs and CDOs. Comments and suggestions. We welcome your comments about this publication and suggestions for future editions. You can send us comments through irs.gov/formcomments. Or, you can write to the Internal Revenue Service, Tax Forms and Publications, 1111 Constitution Avenue, NW, IR 6526, Washington, D.C. 20224. Although we can't respond individually to each comment received, we do appreciate your feedback and will consider your comments and suggestions as we revise our tax forms, instructions, and publications. Don't send tax questions, tax returns, or payments to the above address. Getting answers to your tax questions. If you have a tax question not answered by this publication or the How to Get Tax Help section at the end of this publication, go to the IRS Interactive Tax Assistant page at irs.gov/help, ITA, where you can find topics by using the search feature or viewing the categories listed. Getting tax forms, instructions, and publications. Go to irs.gov/forms to download current and prior year forms, instructions, and publications. Ordering tax forms, instructions, and publications. Go to irs.gov/orderforms to order current forms, instructions, and publications. Call 800-829-3676 to order prior year forms and instructions. The IRS will process your order for forms and publications as soon as possible. Don't resubmit requests you've already sent, as you can get forms and publications faster online. Useful items you may want to see. Publication 515 Withholding of tax on non-resident aliens and foreign entities. 550 Investment income and expenses. 938 Real estate mortgage investment conduits, REMICs, reporting information, and other collateralized debt obligations, CDOs. Form and instructions. 1096 Annual summary and transmittal of U.S. information returns. 1099-B Proceeds from broker and barter exchange transactions. 1099 Interest income. 1099 OID original issue discount. 8281 Information return for publicly offered original issue discount instruments. 8949 Sales and other dispositions of capital assets. Schedule B, Form 1040, Interest in ordinary dividends, scheduled Form 1040, capital gains, and losses. W8 instructions for the requester of Forms W8BEN, W8BENE, W8ECI, W8EXP, and W8IMY. See how to get tax help at the end of this publication for information about getting publications and forms. Definitions. The following terms are used throughout this publication. Original issue discount is defined first. The other terms are listed alphabetically. Original issue discount (OID). OID is a form of interest. It is the excess of a debt instrument's stated redemption price at maturity over its issue price, acquisition price for a stripped bond or coupon. Zero coupon bonds and debt instruments that pay no stated interest until maturity are examples of debt instruments that have OID. Accrual period. An accrual period is an interval of time used to measure OID. The length of an accrual period can be 6 months, a year, or some other period no longer than 1 year, depending on when the debt instrument was issued. Acquisition premium. Acquisition premium is the excess of a debt instrument's adjusted basis immediately after purchase, including purchase at original issue, over the debt instrument's adjusted issue price at that time. A purchaser reduces any OID income by the acquisition premium, as discussed under Information for owners of OID debt instruments, later. If the purchaser's adjusted basis exceeds the total of all amounts payable under the debt instrument other than qualified stated interest after the date of purchase, then the debt instrument has premium instead of acquisition premium. See premium, later. Adjusted issue price. The adjusted issue price of a debt instrument at the beginning of an accrual period is used to figure the OID allocable to that period. In general, the adjusted issue price at the beginning of the debt instrument's first accrual period is its issue price. The adjusted issue price at the beginning of any 515, 550, 938, 1096, 1099B, 1099 int, 1099 OID, 8281, 8949. Schedule B, Form 1040. Schedule D, Form 1040. W8. Page 2 Publication 1212, January 2023. Subsequent accrual period is the sum of the issue price and all the OID includable in income before that accrual period minus any payment previously made on the debt instrument, other than a payment of qualified stated interest. Debt instrument. The term, debt instrument, means any instrument or contractual arrangement that constitutes indebtedness under general principles of federal income tax law, including, for example, a bond, debenture, note, certificate, or other evidence of indebtedness. It generally does not include an annuity contract. Issue price. For debt instruments listed in Section IA and Section IB of the final release of original issue discount (OID) tables, the issue price is generally the initial offering price to the public, excluding bond houses and brokers, at which a substantial amount of these instruments was sold. Market discount. An OID debt instrument generally has market discount if your adjusted basis in the debt instrument immediately after you acquired it, usually its purchase price, was less than the debt instrument's issue price plus the total OID that accrued before you acquired it. In general, a debt instrument is purchased in the secondary market at a market discount when the value of the debt instrument has decreased since the instrument's issue date, for example, because of an increase in interest rates. An OID debt instrument has market discount if your adjusted basis in the debt instrument immediately after you acquired it, usually its purchase price, was less than the debt instrument's issue price plus the total OID that accrued before you acquired it. The market discount is the difference between the issue price plus accrued OID and your adjusted basis. Premium. A debt instrument is purchased at a premium if its adjusted basis immediately after purchase is greater than the total of all amounts payable on the debt instrument after the purchase date, other than qualified stated interest. The premium is the excess of the adjusted basis over the payable amounts. Premium will generally eliminate the future reporting of OID in income by the purchaser, as discussed under Information for owners of OID debt instruments, later. See Pub. 550 for more information on the tax treatment of bond premium. Qualified stated interest. In general, qualified stated interest is stated interest that is unconditionally payable in cash or property other than debt instruments of the issuer, at least annually over the term of the debt instrument at a single fixed rate. Stated redemption price at maturity. A debt instrument's stated redemption price at maturity is the sum of all amounts, principal and interest, payable on the debt instrument, other than qualified stated interest. Yield to maturity, YTM. In general, the YTM is the discount rate that, when used in figuring the present value of all principal and interest payments, produces an amount equal to the is/so price of the debt instrument. The YTM is generally shown on the face of the debt instrument or in the literature you receive from your broker. If you do not have this information, consult your broker, tax advisor, or the issuer. Debt instruments in the OID tables. The OID tables, available at irs.gov/pub1212, under Recent Developments, can be used by brokers and other middlemen to prepare information returns. If you own a debt instrument included in the tables, you generally should not rely on the information in the OID tables to determine, or compare, the OID to be reported on your tax return, but you should use, as a starting point, the information supplied to you on Form 1099 OID. The OID amounts listed are figured without reference to the price or date at which you acquired the debt instrument. For information about determining the OID to be reported on your tax return, see the instructions for figuring OID under Information for owners of OID debt instruments, later. The following discussions explain what information is contained in each section of the tables. Section I. This section contains publicly offered, long-term debt instruments. Section IA. Corporate debt instruments issued before 1985. Section IB. Corporate debt instruments issued after 1984. Taxable obligations issued by a state or a local government. Section IC. Inflation-indexed debt instruments. For each publicly offered debt instrument in Section I, the list contains the following information: the name of the issuer, the Committee on Uniform Security Identification Procedures (CUSIP) number, the issue date, the maturity date, the issue price expressed as a percent of principal or of stated redemption price at maturity, the annual stated or coupon interest rate. This rate is shown as 0.00 if no annual interest payments are provided. The YTM will be added to Section IB for bonds issued after December 31, 2006. The total OID accrued up to January 1 of a calendar year. This information is not available for every instrument. For long-term debt instruments issued after July 1, 1982, the daily OID for the accrual periods falling in a calendar year and a subsequent year. The total OID per $1,000 of principal or maturity value for a calendar year and a subsequent year. Section 2. This section contains stripped coupons and principal components of U.S. Treasury and government-sponsored enterprise debt instruments. These stripped components are available through the Department of the Treasury's Separate Trading of Registered Interest and Principal of Securities (STRIPS) program and government-sponsored enterprises such as the Resolution Funding Corporation. This section also includes debt instruments backed by U.S. Treasury securities that represent ownership interests in those securities. The obligations listed in Section 2 are arranged by maturity date. The amounts listed are the total OID for a calendar year per $1,000 of redemption price. Section 3. This section contains short-term discount obligations. Section 3A. Short-term U.S. Treasury bills. Section 3B. Federal Home Loan Banks. Section 3C. Federal National Mortgage Association. Section 3D. Federal Farm Credit Banks. Section 3E. Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation. Section 3F. Federal Agricultural Mortgage Corporation. Information that supplements Section 3A is available on the Internet at treasurydirect.gov/tdhome.htm. The short-term obligations listed in this section are arranged by maturity date. For each obligation, the list contains the CUSIP number, maturity date, issue price expressed as a percent of principal, and discount to be reported as interest for a calendar year per $1,000 of redemption price. Brokers and other middlemen should rely on the issue price information in Section 3 only if they are unable to determine the price actually paid by the owner. Debt instruments not in the OID tables. The list of debt instruments discussed earlier does not contain the following items: U.S. savings bonds, certificates of deposit and other face amount certificates issued at a discount, including syndicated certificates of deposit. Obligations issued by tax-exempt organizations. OID debt instruments that matured or were entirely called by the issuer before the tables were posted on the IRS website. Mortgage-backed securities and mortgage participation certificates. Short-term obligations, other than the obligations listed in Section 3. Debt instruments issued at a discount by states or their political subdivisions if these debt instruments are tax-exempt obligations. REMIC regular interests and CDOs. Commercial paper and bankers' acceptances issued at a discount. Obligations issued at a discount by individuals. Caution. Publication 1212, January 2023, page 3. Foreign obligations not traded in the United States and obligations not issued in the United States. Information for brokers and other middlemen. The following discussions contain specific instructions for brokers and middlemen who hold or redeem a debt instrument for the owner. In general, you must file a Form 1099 or Form 1099 OID for the debt instrument if the interest or OID to be included in the owner's income for a calendar year totals $10 or more. You must also file a Form 1099 or Form 1099 OID if you were required to deduct and withhold tax, even if the interest or OID is less than $10. See backup withholding later. If you must file a Form 1099 or Form 1099 OID, furnish a copy to the owner of the debt instrument by January 31st in the year it is due, or February 15th in the year it is due if the Form 1099 or Form 1099 OID is furnished as part of a consolidated reporting statement. File all your Forms 1099 with the IRS, accompanied by Form 1096. By February 28th in the year they are due, March 31st if you file electronically. Electronic payee statements. You can issue Form 1099 or Form 1099 OID electronically with the consent of the recipient. More information. For more information, including penalties for failure to file or furnish required information returns or statements, see the current general instructions for certain information returns, available at irs.gov/1099 General Instructions. Short-term obligations redeemed at maturity. If you redeem a short-term discount obligation for the owner at maturity, you must report the discount as interest on Form 1099 int. To figure the discount, use the purchase price shown on the owner's copy of the purchase confirmation receipt or similar record, or the price shown in your transaction records. If the owner's purchase price cannot be determined, figure the discount as if the owner had purchased the obligation at its original issue price. A special rule is used to determine the original issue price for information reporting on U.S. Treasury bills, T-bills, listed in Section 3A. Under this rule, you treat as the original issue price of the T-bill the non-competitive, weighted average of accepted auction bids, discount price for the longest maturity T-bill maturing on the same date as the T-bill being redeemed. This non-competitive discount price is the issue price expressed as a percent of principal shown in Section 3A. A similar rule is used to figure the discount on short-term discount obligations issued by the organizations listed in Section 3B through Section 3F. Example 1. There are 13-week and 26-week T-bills maturing on the same date as the T-bill being redeemed. The price actually paid by the owner cannot be established by owner or middleman records. You treat as the issue price of the T-bill the non-competitive discount price expressed as a percent of principal shown in Section 3A for a 26-week bill maturing on the same date as the T-bill redeemed. The interest you report on Form 1099 int is the OID for $1,000 of principal shown in Section 3A for that obligation. Long-term debt instruments. If you hold a long-term OID debt instrument as a nominee for the true owner, you must generally file Form 1099 OID. For this purpose, you can rely on Section I of the OID tables to determine the following information. Whether a debt instrument has OID. The OID to be reported on the Form 1099 OID. In general, you must report OID on publicly offered, long-term debt instruments listed in Section I. You can also report OID on other long-term debt instruments. Story. Some years ago while studying, I spoke to a lady who worked at the IRS for 25 years. So she obviously knows her stuff and not who I am or my spirit. So I start asking her questions about forms. This is off the record, just a regular phone call. So I ask her about Publication 1212, because this is how I did my taxes with the IRS honestly. But as I stated, I didn't have any of the hardware that I have now. Reason I'm self-taught, so I literally learned the important things before I had my paperwork set up, so I had a puzzle but missing pieces. So I asked, can you tell me more about Publication 1212? She tells me there is no Publication 1212, she been working there 25 years blah blah blah. I said, well, you should know about Publication 1212. Because I do, and you obviously can't help me. Not only are you working at a place 25 years, but you are just a little people, because you fully don't know what could possibly help her as well. Then I told her, you read a script, which I read, and I understand your job. So I told her, like I tell everyone, Google the source. She Googled and her tone changed. She then, instead of saying I apologize for being in my ego and didn't in fact know my job like I think I did and do, she was like, oh, so you filed as a business? Yes, correct. I love to read and I say what I will do and I do it. Don't know everything, but willing to try and want to do things properly and win. I'm built like that. I said I would help my people, and I meant that, and still do. I need y'all to catch up. I do need help, because I don't know everything. But I know enough to know I am not doing anything wrong. Just operating in a system I respect. But I don't respect who is running this system. We as a whole must read and learn their script. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. When I ask questions calling these sources, I know the script and the background of the business. If you don't know how something functions, the history on something, how can you fix it or operate in it? She wasn't the first or last person I had to show them. They are only told what they for their level needs to know. I am not cocky or in ego, however I know we all been fooled. I would be lying if it didn't feel good to let them know. We can all learn more every day as a growing experience. I went to all the banks I ever had an account with and asked for my bank statements. They said they couldn't go back as far, or they didn't have them. So now I ask, well, give me my 1099As I know you all filed, because I haven't. They sent this guy and said a 1099A is for interest on the account. I called B's and told that man, go back there to the back and tell them. I am not here to mess around. A 1099A is to acquire my property account. The statements they didn't have now they produced, because they were not going to. Give me my 1099A. So read, apply, execute and learn. It's just that simple. We cannot depend on anyone to give us information to help us as a whole. We must learn how to be independent and not depend on a handout. Read, trust in self and my father to know if you worked for it you should enjoy it.